So with the Pokemon market going up and down consistently, especially some of the main sets now starting to have a little bit of a correction, and also some cards that have just hit new ceilings. I kind of want to go through more of the higher market for this video. I will do a video later on in the week and we'll kind of make them a weekly segment that we go through the high market and the low. Otherwise, you probably end up with about an hour worth of market analysis. So we're going to start with some of the higher cards. We're really going to be looking at kind of your £100 to £200 cards and more. So starting off just here, we'll kind of go back and forth. I'm looking mainly towards the Sword and Shield and then into the Scarlet and Violet sets as well. Rather than necessarily going all the way back to a certain era, we could potentially have a look at different eras midweek, as well as kind of like your more vintage sets, stuff that you're going to have to look out for that's not necessarily going to be opened in packs in the masses. So if we have a look at the Moltres first, just because this has had a massive dip in price at the moment, mainly because we have got the announcement of the Moltres Premium Collection box, which does look phenomenal in itself, I may add, but in general, we knew that that was going to have a big problem with this card. So if you've not seen it before, I have got a video on it as well. We are going to get this variation of the card, but it is going to have a stamped version on it. If I can find the box, you'll see just here, we're going to have the 3 different variations that we've had from Destined Rivals, but it will have a Destined Rivals stamp on it as well. As much as that is technically a different card, it's not part of the set as such, it still could be placed there. Like if I'm being really particular, yes, I would want both as a collector, but realistically, I'm more than happy with one or the other. And if the box is coming in cheaper than this, plus all of the packs that you do get, why not as such? So we have seen a massive downgrade now already. Now, yes, it will be an interesting one to see where we're at with it. Like obviously now it's coming in at the 130 zone. I really want to see if this really hits the floor. Over the next few weeks, this will be a very interesting piece to see how low it can truly go. Now, its obvious floor at the moment has not been breached. It was at about 130 to begin with. It did take a little bit of a jump of an extra 30-40, but we're now seeing a big drop into that 130 zone. So I want to see this kind of flooding down towards the 100, and I think, to be honest, it possibly could. It will be a very interesting one to see. We then have Ethan's Ho-Oh, Cynthia's Garchomp, and obviously the Mewtwo EX. These are going to be the hard hitters when it comes to the set, and in general, we're kind of seeing the same sort of pattern across the board. It's very much took the dip in, very much like how Journey Together did, but it's kind of now, it's started to rear a little bit more. Destined Rivals has been quite a hard set to truly find for MSRP, for the lower price rather than paying market. Obviously, any sort of set you can find for market if you truly look. But I do think this one is going to be an interesting one to see again. I don't think it goes up to the 190 anytime soon, but it could potentially jump up a little bit more. And as we do go forward, obviously the Cynthia's Garchomp has just been everywhere. Like genuinely, it's such a card that doesn't necessarily have a crazy amount of sales per go, but it's most definitely moving. You look at the kind of data on it, we're seeing some very heavy prices for it. I expected it to maybe drop a little bit more than kind of going up. And you always look, like obviously if I look at this graph here, it makes it look a lot more, but this is $7. Like don't be fooled whenever you're looking at a market price and looking at where it goes. Don't be kind of swayed on the fact that that's such a big increase. Like you go to a month, you go to 3 months, you'll be able to see the different graphs. I could make it look a year and you think, okay, wow, that card has gone up, but realistically it's $7. Like that's not a crazy jump. It's around the same sort of price that we did see it for. But the Mewtwo in itself is an interesting one. We knew that we were going to get a big hype for it. The PSA 10 came down massively over the course, and maybe we do graded cards and go through them a lot more, but my kind of more knowledge really lies around the actual ungraded side of stuff. But obviously we knew that this card was going to go up to start with. It's a stunning card. It's a great Giovanni's Mewtwo. Again, it's very particular with certain things, but maybe having Giovanni's Mewtwo might have been the better touch, but realistically, it's always going to do a solid card. But still coming in the 340, again, going to be interesting to follow that down, as we've not got the craziest amount of data yet. It's not like it's been out a total year yet. We're still getting Destined Rival products, hence the Moltres box. So there's going to be some rooms to kind of dip and go under as well. Then obviously when we look at the rest of them, these are kind of your standard sets more than anything. We'll kind of look at them in the medium to low market as such. But moving over, we're going to look at a bit of Fusion Strike. Mainly, some of these cards are really only going to be for one specific. Looking at that Lugia Altar, it has had a very interesting year so far. Again, terms of sales, doing very, very well, and we've seen a massive price range. And if you manage to kind of sell your off here, buy it when it was a little bit further down, and then manage to get it again. Now, that's hindsight, I know, but just think of the potential that you could have made if you bought a few of these going in and kind of just made that almost quick flip from March to July. I know you're obviously going to kind of see that through kind of glasses now, but even if you manage to get it in the kind of start of the era for it, looking at that 170 zone, even maybe a little bit under, it's definitely took a very nice price ride even from Feb, where the hype really kind of managed to just fly everything. To be honest, I was thinking when I saw this card in, I think it was kind of slowly teetering in May. I didn't think it would go down much more, but I really didn't see the price rise coming that crazily. Like to go up to 450 out of nowhere, 100 jump is an interesting one. But we are getting new collectors into the set. Lugia obviously is coming in as a massive, massive legendary Pokemon. Plus the artwork on it is absolutely insane. So it wasn't that much of a surprise that we're seeing this card really hit new values. That's always an interesting one to see. Obviously the rest of the set, pretty standard across the board. We then have a bit of Fusion Strike, mainly looking at a few of the alt arts going on here, kind of looking mainly towards the Espeon and the Gengar more than anything. I do like the Mews. I think I have definitely been seeing them a hell of a lot more on kind of your TikToks and looking at different people that are kind of focusing around specific sets. Mew is definitely one that is coming in, and we are seeing a bit of a dip in it as well kind of recently, but it has had a massive jump in popularity. Mainly, well, it'd be interesting to know if the Bubble Mew is really exploding everything, kind of like how the Sunbreon was kind of almost double backing on the Moonbreon if it was kind of doing the same. It'd be interesting to know, because we know that the minute the Bubble Mew is going nuts, and we will get to that one. Espeon obviously coming in, it's just a standard. We are seeing a little bit of kind of a decrease now after the hype round here for the Prismatic. To be honest, if you were looking to sell any sort of evolution card for a massive like upscale market, the peak of Prismatic was definitely the sell time. You kind of knew you had that window, and to be honest, it was probably, I would have come maybe to kind of like end of April, which might have seen a little bit of a dip. You might have seen more panic people kind of seeing that massive high in March, and then maybe saw in that slight dip, and then it's caused it to kind of come down a lot more, especially when Prismatic just really was a hard set to collect. Like, you had to go singles, you just couldn't buy the packs. But we are going to see more than likely this drop a little bit more. The artwork for me, there's some of the Sword and Shield artwork that we've got is just stunning. Now, don't get me wrong, Scarlet and Violet's had some wonderful artworks, but the border, the card itself it's one of my favorite Espeons to this date. We then obviously have the Gengar, the big boy. We love the Gigamax Gengar, absolutely incredible. And to be honest, the price in itself is still having a bit of a rise going through. We knew that this card is kind of your Fusion Strike hitter, and more than likely will continue to be the Fusion Strike hitter for a long time. The volume of sales is very dwindling because it's a premium card. Not everything's being sold online for this, because a lot of people will be obviously trying to grade it out. You'll have quite a few people really hitting them hefty prices going in, but it's just a stunning card to say the least. It's an absolute beauty when it comes to it, and I will be seeing this card more than likely rise even more as it gets further and further away from being in any packs that are available. Like, you can still get Fusion product at a decent rate. It's still upscaled in market price, but you could still definitely get it. It will be interesting to see when that does completely go. Where does this cut? Does it just absolutely moon? Now, obviously, Evolving Skies. We kind of went through this slightly with obviously the Prismatic. We had a quick look at a few of these cards. Again, these, to be honest, these are better than Prismatic in my eyes. I love the Prismatic design. I like how it all works, but in general, these artworks are personally my favorites going into it. I think even out of like the Moonbryon and everything, I think that Espeon from Fusion is possibly one of my favorites. And to be honest, even this one's one of my favorites as well. The Glaceon is definitely coming in as a winner for just the normal V arts, but it is interesting to see where we go. So if we kind of stick to the realm and look at kind of your 100 and above, we'll kind of see through a few of these where they're truly going. Evolving Skies has obviously got quite a few as well that are just on a new sort of level. Like there is a lot of things to kind of go through, so we'll jump through a few of them because we know roughly when it comes to a lot of the very high end, like we're looking 300-400, some of the evolutions are starting to dip down a lot more. You will see a lot of people kind of going towards the Japanese side of these because naturally they're just that little bit cheaper and they're the same sort of card. But we're seeing some rises when it comes to the Vs just because I don't think they had that massive explosion very much like how the Moonbryon did. Same with the Sylveon, we'll obviously see that drop up a little bit and it is slowly coming down. I think that one was that little bit too high. I think with the Vs, I'd probably say a market price at around about 100 is kind of about right, especially with the design itself. It's nice. It's not necessarily anything too crazy, but Sylveon is a fan favorite everywhere. I think the Espeon is iconic with this one personally. It's most definitely up there. And again, like we've seen with the Sylveon, once they hit that absolute peak in that Feb-March time, we knew that roughly this is still around the 100 sort of zone. Even being just a V, it definitely has limitations. Same with the Rayquaza as well. It's another one that has that sort of limitations. It dropped down a bit, but the only thing that's really going for Rayquaza personally is the fact that it's Rayquaza. Now, evolutions are obviously in season. They obviously had Prismatic. More than likely we'll have another set next year or the year after with evolutions, especially if they give us a new evolution form in the next gen set. I'd not really seen anything too crazy going on about that. I know there's been whispers, but everybody wants a new evolution. So once that does happen, could we see an evolution 3.0, and will that take that scale just a bit too far? It's an interesting one. Now, obviously, when we do look at the beautiful Glaceon VMAX, we obviously saw the peak, standard as anything, and we're kind of seeing at the 265 at the moment. It's not bad. It's an interesting one to see where they do go in the coming like year or so. Same with the likes of Sylveon as well. We got the massive peak, we see the massive dip off. It's absolutely huge, but it's still more expensive than when it was prior to that massive explosion. So it's something to always consider that if you are holding on to these cards, they're still more expensive than what they were before this big hype. Now, whether they drop a lot more, that's going to be yet to seen. We did see a little bit of a dip off on the Dragonite, but Dragonite's Dragonite. It's a stunning card. It's a great one. Love the Spearow and Spearows and Fearow in the background as well. It's a beautiful card. It definitely will do very, very well as we do go forward into it. Which then brings us into the first Umbreon V. Again, kind of follows the same sort of rule, but Umbreon, because of the Moonbryon, because of previous versions, it is considered the top of the evolutions. I think it is one of the more expensive ones across the board everywhere. So some rules won't necessarily apply to it. Like we started at the 130 zone. Realistically, we are going to see this one a bit more expensive than its counterparts personally. We then have the VMAX for Leafeon, again one of my more favoured Leafeon cards, coming in and dropping off a little bit more. Like we said, this is too high. There's too many cards in this set over that 400, that 300 kind of zone. You just knew that a lot of them will drop down, and kind of very similar to Ray with this one. I mean, it's coming down, but you think that it was 400 the last year. It then jumps all the way to 800, and it's only dropped to 660. Like, obviously, buying it at 800 was just never the play. At that point, if you knew that card, once you kind of got to the spike in January, I feel like singles that were absolutely through the roof just don't even touch, because naturally they were always going to come down. I think everybody could see that, especially with the summer sales. We just know summer is just prevalent for cards dropping down. People are not necessarily spending crazy. You are wanting to be able to just hold off a little bit. Umbreon or Moonbryon is an interesting one as well. Obviously it took the massive jump, and to be honest, I could see it dropping down, but I don't think it's going to drop down that much. I really don't think it's going to be at the 600 mark. without something just coming out and going crazy for it. I don't necessarily think it's above the grand. I think it could drop down sooner than that, but I'd be pinching it around the 800-900 mark at some point soon anyway. But that is obviously the Evolving Cries, absolutely outrageous set with so many big hitters. We then also have obviously going into our beautiful Crown Zenith set, which we always love. Again, you're kind of looking at the market prices for the kind of all the gold cards, the Origin forms, the Arceus, the Giratina, absolutely stunning. But really, I kind of just want to look at these two specifically. Like I say, we might even go around and have a look at each set individually. But this is kind of one of them ones that is kind of now doubling back on itself. Personally, for me, I think this is a sensational artwork. Not only have you got, obviously, the Charizard fighting Mewtwo, you've got your Tangrowth fire kind of like firing over here. It's just a very nice perspective card. And if you're looking at it for a card purpose, you obviously got Charizard, one of the main mascots, Mewtwo being one of the main legendaries, plus then the kind of action shot, a Tangrowth going flying. It's a very, very nice card to have. And we did see it drop down a hell of a lot in terms of going from that 130 all the way down to the minimum of about 90. You'd be looking at around about the 9,500 zone, but now coming back up again to the 130. I'm very keeping a close eye, because I do think coming from this 50 sort of zone, if this does drop to maybe like your 80, I think it's a potential pickup, because I don't see this card lasting too long before everything is gone product wise lower than 100. This screams over 100 card, just without even question. Giratina. Now, I don't know what necessarily makes this one personally the go-to, whether it's the hardest pull rate, because the artworks, they're very similar. It's hardly like they're crazy different. Giratina is obviously going to be a fan favorite of a lot of people compared to the Dialga Palkia. Arceus, I'm not surprised, is coming in second, but I feel like Giratina just has the best out of the bunch, to be honest. And again, it's not necessarily gone too crazy. We're seeing it around the 130 to 170 zone at the moment. Massive influxes depending on where you're looking. You'll obviously different kind of price points for near mint, heavy played, and all that jazz. As you can see, this is kind of your heavy played player foil. So it would be interesting to see. You got your hollow foil near mint is coming in at the 170. So it does check out to be a pretty solid card to say the least. I don't know if I'd spend the 170 without having the other three first. It's just an interesting pull to see. Which then brings us into the Scarlet and Violet era. We're kind of looking mainly towards the Charizard on this one. The 151 has got some incredible artworks across the board, but they are reasonable. Like, realistically, if you think of most of these cards, like you take away the top five, really, the top four there, you're looking at 200, 67, 60, 50. What you're looking at 120, you're looking at 340, kind of your 400 mark for your fours. But then you go 40, 40, 40, 30, you drop down into the 30s, then into the 25s, all the way down to the 20s. It's not a bad set if you go card by card. If you're trying to pack them all, a little bit more difficult, but it's actually quite a nice set. So the Charizard, really, once you've got that out of the way, that's the chunk going. Now, obviously, this Charizard is... It's one of them Charizards that you remember the Skyridge, you remember base set, you remember Dark Charizard. This is going to be an iconic Charizard of its era. Obsidian Flames should have been, and I can imagine, if I can preface, that the Inferno X set that's coming out in, I want to say October, November time, for English anyway, that is potentially going to be another iconic Charizard. So what I would suggest is potentially looking at that Inferno X and maybe getting one as soon as possible. Now, obviously, you want to see if there's any dip. Even this card dips. It's had its moments where it's at the 100, it jumps to 290, it drops to 180, we're back up at 220. It's a very interesting card, to say the least, but this is going to be a prime candidate for a Charizard collection. It's simple. It's a nice card. You've got a great background on it. It's in a set that is widely popular. So even if Charizard in himself falls off a cliff in terms of a name, he is still going to be the most expensive in this iconic set. So it's an interesting one to see where the buy prices are, if you've obviously not got it at the start, like the 100, the 120 zone, because we saw that massive price range. And even then, the sales coming in at 56, even 47 at 290. It's a card that has a very limited ceiling going forward, like we've seen with many other Charizards, and I do expect this card to continue to grow even after the 151 is done. Which then leads us into a bit of Paldean Fates and into the kind of iconicness, the Bubble Mew. Now obviously Charizard here as well, it's not my favourite. I don't look at this card and think, if I was to go 20 years into the future, I'm not remembering that. Maybe I remember what on earth the artwork is. In terms of, obviously, the actual artist, it's their style. It's not my personal favourite. I like the original Charizard. I like the 151. I want to be able to see him. I'm not necessarily the biggest shiny fan in terms of Charizard. I like the cleanness of the orange scales, of the orange original Charizard. That's just a personal preference. Unless it's in the bubble, unless it's in this, if I could get a shiny Charizard here, that would be incredible. Like, that actually would be so sick. Unfortunately, he's a big enough name to be able to get everything, because I don't think we've had really any others coming in for that Charizard. But we could do a whole segment looking through the Charizards. But this one personally will be, again, another fan favorite. Obviously, Paldean Fates is a big set that everybody likes. At least the shiny variations I'm a big fan of. When it comes to, like I say, collecting all of the sets of these, I think that as a collection, if you could get that, and I know it would take a lot of time and they need to do the Pokemon, if you could get that as a Pokedex binder, that would be outrageously cool. Like, imagine all of the Pokemon in this style as well. Hidden Fates, Paldean Fates, I think, was it Shiny Fates? All of them in collecting, like, you pick the Charmander you like from whichever one, if he's got multiple, and you just collect one of each. I personally really like that as an idea. It might be something that I try with the new binders that we got. Charizard, obviously, though, will always do well in price, but the main attraction is this Bubble Mew. Where is it going? Like, I thought when we got that big price upgrade to like the 350 to 450 margin, I thought, okay, well, that's got to be its ceiling at the moment. Like, I mean, the card itself is stunning. It's a very nice card, obviously. It's a specific design. It's Mew, a shiny Mew to say the least. But this card is going through the roof. 650 is where we're at the moment. It is just outrageous. Just going from, just even thinking a year ago, this card was $90. That is absolutely insane. If you've managed to just whack 10 of them on, the amount that you've managed to get from this is just nuts. Now, once we got to here, I didn't think, I saw at 300, I was like, okay, that's a ceiling. Like, that's a decent level for right now. Maybe in 5 years it goes up more. It's the biggest one in the set. It's a very hard set to get. It's obviously a special set. So naturally you're going to see it rise over time. But to just out of nowhere influx all the way up to 650 is absolutely great, and still have sold as well. 20 items being sold. There is data that people are buying it for that much. That is the absolute nuts variations for it. That is just criminally crazy for me. It's just a massive upgrade for him. Now, obviously, the main one, looking at Twilight, we're seeing a bit of Greninja, another fan favorite that I think this ceiling is high. It's a stunning card. It doesn't do it just like this. Looks lovely in the picture. When you've got it in hand, it's absolutely crazy. It's such a lovely card. And to be honest, we were going through a bit of a dip, to be honest. But naturally, as you look the year view, we're seeing a massive dip down from the absolute hype period it had. I would say that this has got no ceiling. Once this is out of the rotation, it is a stunning card. It's one of them that I do think will do very well going into the future. Just from the artwork alone, it's stunning. It's the big one in Twilight. Obviously, there is a few others that will obviously see through Twilight, but this is the main one. This is the one that everybody wants. Obviously, you've got a few of the nice pairings for it. When you look at pairing, obviously the Eevee one I'm surprised is that cheap, to be honest. At 50, I think that's a steal for that Eevee. But then you also have the Chance's quite a nice one, just as a kind of, because people are obviously going for a lot more of the kind of background images, like maybe going for like river cards, if you're obviously looking for almost working cards as well, like obviously Chansey and Blissey working in there, Snorlax in the corner, a bit of Psyduck with Confusion, stunning. Then obviously you've got the Growlithe, and still to this day, just as a cheeky hint from here, this card for me is one of my most favorite artworks of the entirety of the Scarlet and Violet deck. It just in general, it's just stunning, and the fact that it's only a tenner is absolutely crazy. Then we move on to Surging Sparks, getting closer to home now. The Pikachu is always interesting. Obviously, the Milotic coming down to 88. The Latias now coming in as an interesting one. I think this one, for me, it's a great card, but whether I saw it at the 200 mark, it's a bit questionable. I do think I could see why it was dropping down. And don't get me wrong, I do think this card will still stay in its original state. Like, it's over 100. Maybe I would consider definitely over the 150. I just don't know if I'd quite said it's a 250 card. I think that was a bit of a stretch for it. Like, it's a lovely card. It's a great legendary. But 250 for it was always a bit interesting. It was a set that everybody opened. It obviously came prior to the hype. So it was always going to be an interesting one. Pikachu. Now, we have seen lots of different things with Pikachu over the years. And most definitely, this card coming out as a 500, I don't see it. I think 500 is crazy, like genuinely crazy. I could see 300. If it's coming out at 300, it has a lower dip. It maybe goes back up at some point, but coming out at the 500 mark is a bit spenny. Like that's very much in that high bracket. I think 250 for right now, in terms of the Pikachu card, in comparison to the other Pikachu cards, it's good, but I'd say it's mid, realistically. Like, I don't like the terrestrial kind of look of it. I like how the artwork goes with the rainbow border. I think that really helps this card, especially with all the colours on it. If you could get away with it, taking away the terrestrial or the terraform, and then just having him a little bit higher, I think the card would do much better. I think the artwork would be stunning, but it's one of my more mid to favourite cards in terms of the modern era, especially. Like, it doesn't go on any of the kind of ponchos or anything like that in terms of look. They are in a uniqueness of their own. I think this Pikachu has its uniqueness, but it just isn't 500 in my opinion. So I would definitely be putting a close eye on that as we see maybe a little bit more of a fall going into it. Now, obviously, we're not going to run through much of the Prismatic. I had a video on that, the last one, so go check that one out, just because we've recently gone through them. But naturally, I always like to kind of look at them and just see where they're at in terms of price. Obviously, we saw that in general, everything is coming down here, from these all the way down to just your normal SARs. Everything's on an absolute decline. Now, if we were to take the main one out of this and look at the Umbreon, it's on a steady decline. Now, obviously, this card was not $1.5 grand. Like, it's incredibly difficult to get, but it's not a $1.5 grand card. You've got to have substance to it. The only substance this card had to it was there was a Moonbreon that was out last year or year before. So naturally, this card was always going to follow suit with it, but it was never going to stay at that sort of price. If you've managed to get out at this sort of level, you've done very well. And to be honest, I'd even take the extra loss and I'd kind of buy it at that 900, even if it goes down a little bit more. You've made yourself 600 quite comfortably. So it's an interesting one to say the least, but I definitely see this card dropping even more as we go forward. Which then brings us into our kind of new cards. Really, there's only kind of 3 that I want to talk about in the White Flare. The Victini, the Reshiram, and also the Reshiram EX. And then we also have Black Bolt that I want to do the same for as well. Now, obviously for this, it's always interesting because the Japanese variations, Victini isn't there because it was in a special promo. So there was only X amount made, X amount given out. So naturally that card was going to be in the thousands already. It's a very limited edition. With obviously it being here, you'll see a lot more of a market wanting this card. Hence why you'll see it coming in as a massive price to begin with. Now, obviously, we've got very limited data for these, so it's kind of just seeing where they go. They're in their downward phase. I still see them going down. I don't see this card as a 500 card either. Like, this screams 200 at most. Like, if we're going in the new price pool, 200, I don't know if I'd see it going down at 1 just because it's a new variation as well, a new rarity. Maybe we see 300 would be where I'd personally be looking at and seeing if it does steady off from there. Reshiram, again, new variation. It was always going to do incredibly well to start with, coming into that 500 zone. Now dipping down, and we're seeing a little bit of a back sale back up to the 440. Now, this is definitely a card like the Zekrom that would be easily 300 in this today's market. More than likely, it will definitely do quite well on the kind of the later release. I think the artwork is is great for the rarity. I like the black and white theme. It works really well. So I definitely see these staying at a very premium price. Now, I could definitely see this card going below the 200 mark quite comfortably. It's a lovely artwork. It's not my fan favorite, but it definitely will drop with the fact that you've got the Victini and the Reshiram white and red variation kind of taking center scene. You're not going to see this card being a crazy amount off the go. Maybe a little bit later on it might see a little bit of a rise, but realistically we're going to be seeing these at a more discounted price, and more than likely we'll see a lot more of these kind of taking the back fold for them. Like, obviously there's a lot of lovely artworks that you can go for all of them, but they all can't be 50, 60, 70 pound cards because it just wouldn't do well as a set. Hence why Prismatic is coming down incredibly low. I would say the same for Zekrom in comparison to Reshiram. It's at the minute 200. I see it going under that. I do personally prefer the Zekrom over the Reshiram in my opinion, but it's always interesting to see that we are kind of now plateauing a little bit. Do we see it drop a little bit more later on? Remember, this set has only just came out as well, so I wouldn't really be looking at any of the heavy hitters to purchase or invest in. I would definitely just be watching these over the weeks, definitely coming back to them and seeing where they go. Obviously then we've got very similar, I feel like they're going to be almost mimicked, the obvious Victinis in both sets, so you technically need two if you really care that much. They're both going to mirror each other very, very well, and same with the Zekrom and also the Reshiram. In terms of the black and white variations, they're going to mimic very closely. Now one might have the upper hand being the more prominent Pokemon or most popular Pokemon, which I would personally consider being Zekrom, but I've got a funny feeling Reshiram might win that vote. Leave a comment down below if you've got this far. Reshiram or Zekrom? Leave it in the comments. But in general, we'll see them mirror each other quite a lot. And obviously then, we've got the Seismitoad. I'm not putting any more highlight on that. That is just a hyped card. Don't touch it with a barge pole. It's just not going to happen. Obviously, then we have got some trainers that obviously do quite well. N and Lily, both being the more fan favorite. And again, we've got the artworks that obviously come in very, very nice in my opinion anyway. So lots and lots of nice sets. Let me know down below what you think about them though. I do want to check, just whilst we're here, what is the Lily's Clefairy coming in now? It's one of the more expensive cards that I've kind of slipped up on. Are we seeing an increase? We're not. When did that come out? In April? I thought, wow, okay, so it's still at the 107. I knew it was like at the 130, 120 zone. We're seeing, is that on, oh, that's on a damage half hollow foil. 130 in terms of normal hollow foil. Okay, I mean, it's always interesting to see. So we're looking at the 130. It's gone up slightly. I mean, it's not necessarily crazy. It's 130. Obviously, you're looking at maybe like a 20 increase in comparison like it was at that 100 mark. So it is slightly coming back up as a very interesting card across the set. So anyway, let me know down below what you think. What are you collecting? Leave it in the comments and I'll catch you all for the next one. Peace.